OMG, Teach Me crew. I am excited to be here with you today. And I think this episode is going to be one that you bookmark and you come back to. If you're like me and you're a woman and you are in that midlife range where menopause might be a thing that you need to be thinking about. So, I was just confessing before we started recording that sometimes this is not a thing I want to think about, but at the same time, it's super important. And that is, how do we manage our weight issues that might pop up in menopause? How do we handle that? Why is it happening? What's the best things we can do? And I do really think that understanding our bodies and understanding what's going on is giving us power in this period of life that not a lot of people like to talk about. So, my guest today, Alison Blad, is a distinguished health writer, speaker, and lecturer. She's renowned for her contributions to the field of women's health, particularly in menopause management for women aged 40 and up. She has over 30 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She's an award winning nutritional therapist and beauty therapist. She operates an online clinic that supports women across the globe that are grappling with the challenges of perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So I am really excited, Alison, to talk to you today. And I know you're going to be a great resource for our listeners too. So welcome.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion. So let's dive in. Tell us, people's stories are powerful. And my listeners know I always start with this, but tell us how you decided to become a nutritional therapist, how you ended up focusing on functional medicine and on women. Uh, Tell us a little bit how that happened.
Yeah, I said my journey actually started when I was quite young. It started when I was a teenager, because I had very bad acne. You know that the typical teenage acne, and it's hard enough, isn't it, being a teenager with all the hormonal like roller coaster, and then your skin breaks out. So I had very bad acne, and that, of course, at that age knocks your confidence. But even when I was young, I decided that I wanted to look at a more holistic way to manage this rather than just taking medication. So I started researching, and obviously hormones were a big part of it. And I became really interested in hormones and how they affected not only the skin, but the body. So when I actually started my career, because of my interest in my own skin, I started as an esthetician, as a skin specialist, specifically working with women that had hormonal problems with their skin. Very soon came to realize that, of course, the aesthetic outside piece is important, but you also need the inside piece. And at the same time as this, my mother and all, female members in my family, that I didn't really understand what menopause was then so much. It was spoken about, but I didn't really understand it. But they were all, my mother was going through it. She felt terrible. And my grandmother, and all these people that were in various stages of menopause, but nobody spoke about it. And, I started to say, well, what is actually going on? Why are you feeling like this? And research and hormones and everything. So when I studied nutritional therapy, specifically looking at it in a functional medicine aspect, looking at the whole body, what is actually going on in a woman's body, when we're over 40, and looking at ways to manage that with food, with lifestyle, and with nutrition. And I've worked for many years now and seen, the difference that you can make by just changing lifestyle, nutrition, mindset. It's incredible what you can do with those tools.
And you know what? That's so empowering too, because when you're saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, like we can do this. We can eat in a way that's really helping. We can live in a way that's really helping. I think that's empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't, I say all the time, it doesn't have to be difficult. I think people think, oh, I'm going to have to, all of a sudden buy all these really expensive, complicated foods. And it doesn't have to be like that. It can be very, very straightforward and realistic, which I'm very much about, because the majority of clients that I see are stressed, they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They don't want complication. They want somebody to say, okay, do this. Very easy, very quick.
So true. So true. It's very stressful to think about, oh, now I have to add another thing that I always have to do every day. Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, you know what? I did not struggle with acne thinking about your story, but one of my kids did. And I understand how you would have started your path that way, because it is really stressful. It is hard during a hard time of life. And it is a lot about the inside, not just the skin. So I appreciate that that's kind of what led you to today as well. And so today we're mostly going to talk about weight, but can we just kind of run through common symptoms that people might start to be facing in menopause?
Yeah, sure. What the first stage of menopause is called perimenopause, and this, on average, very individual, starts at the age of 45. And it kind of creeps up on you, because a lot of people put the symptoms they may be experiencing down to life, the busy
Right.
life, the stress, everything. But some very classic symptoms is the hot flashes. That is a real classic menopausal symptom. Itchy skin, mood swings, that typical brain fog, not remembering things. All of a sudden, you go into a room and you think, why did I come in here? You can't remember people's names. There's a lot of cognitive issues that happen as well. Weight gain, suddenly feeling that your waist is expanding. I think that there's just a never-ending list of menopausal symptoms, and it is very, very individual depending on the person. But they creep up on you, and like I say, you don't always put them down to the fact that you could be in perimenopause.
Right. And it happens at all different ages, right? So that's also the tricky part. It could be a range of ages that this starts happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on average, it's 45. If you go, we should never forget about what we call the forgotten menopause, which is really where there's a lot of women that go into menopause before the age of 40. There's some women that go into, or their ovaries stop functioning in the 20s. So it isn't always a natural process. It can be due to hysterectomy. If you've had medication, if you've had cancer treatments, this can stop the ovarian function, so you don't have the hormones that you need anymore. And there is something called ovarian insufficiency disorder, which can happen even in the 20s. And we don't really understand why this happens yet. There's more research is needed. But I think it's good to be aware that it isn't every woman that has a natural menopause. You can be thrown into it for various other reasons.
That's a good point. It's so hard to generalize about this for sure. Yeah. All right. Well, let's lean into this weight issue. So I hear people complain that what happened to my waist? I none of my pants fit anymore. And I just kind of sit with my fingers crossed. I hope that doesn't happen to me. But what is it that they're talking about when they say I'm losing my waist, and why is that happening? Or do we
Yeah,
know?
well, the thing is, unfortunately it's multifactorial. There isn't just it's because of this. There are so many different factors, which I'm going to explain, that come into play, and all of these, like the accumulation of all of these together, that is what we think. We don't fully understand it yet, but and one thing that we can't forget is that we've also got the aging process going on. So it's kind of a combination of that, as well as the decline in hormones. But if we start by what is actually going on, estrogen is needed. I mean, I don't think we really truly understand how important estrogen is. It's what we call a mother hormone. It's the master of our metabolic homeostasis and our metabolism. It's really not just a sex hormone. And because when our levels decline, when we go through the menopause transition, this is when a lot of things start happening with our metabolism. Um, the regulation going on there. What I say to people is you can't get away with what you did when you were younger, when you're going through menopause. You have to look at portion size. Even if you're doing really well and you're eating well and you're moving and you're doing all the things that you should be doing, you can still start feeling, what's going on? I've got this like stomach that I never had before. And one of the reasons for that is that we have, due to the hormone imbalances and decline, we have fat redistribution. So before menopause, so when we're fertile and everything, we have more of a pear shape. So we hold the weight more on the hips and the legs. But when we go through menopause, we become more of an apple. So the weight distribution comes around the middle area. And, our bodies are very clever, amazing machines.
Agree.
And
Yes.
they're amazing. And what happens is when your ovaries are no longer producing enough estrogen, your body suddenly thinks, well, hold on a minute, what's going on here? We need this estrogen. And it will look for other sources. And another source is fat cells. So the good old fat cell, to gain rebalance, or your body's thinking, how am I going to gain rebalance of this estrogen that we need? It will store fat, and it will store what we call hormonal fat around the tummy area. It always comes around the middle area. And another kind of double whammy there is that when we have high levels of estrogen, which we can have in perimenopause, so the phase when we're going into menopause, this triggers our pancreas to secrete more insulin. Now, there's many different things that can happen to women when we go through menopause, and one of them is what we call insulin resistance. And this
Mm-hmm.
is all kind of in the blood sugar balance brackets. And we don't want insulin resistance because, amongst other things, this leads to weight gain. So it's very much about what you're eating to balance your blood sugar so you don't have this, spikes of insulin. Insulin is a hormone that allows your body to utilize glucose to get the energy into the cell. And when you become insulin resistant, it's kind of like, your cell thinks, oh, insulin's coming again. I've seen you so much, and now I'm not opening up and letting that in anymore. Becomes resistant. And insulin is a fat storing hormone. So you
Ooh.
can imagine when you've got insulin in the bloodstream, you will not burn fat. You will store fat. So that's another reason. Another big factor in weight management is stress. And this isn't something that people always think about. We tend to think of food, don't we? Which obviously is a big part of it. But when I work with clients, I say to them, if you're not going to manage your stress, if weight loss is their goal, it's going to be very difficult to lose weight because of cortisol, which is stress hormone, which is released when we're stressed. Again, that is a fat storing hormone. And when we are chronically stressed, it makes our body release glucose, stored glucose, which is stored as glycogen, into the bloodstream. So again, you've got, the blood sugar going up. Insulin is secreted. You've got insulin there. You've got cortisol, fat storing. So you can see there's a picture building up. And I mean, just to add on to this, there's sleep, which we all know is
Mm.
very important. And it can be a problem during menopause. A lot of women really suffer from sleep issues. And it's been shown in research when we don't sleep, when we're tired and we haven't slept well, we crave carbohydrates. And we're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be craving lovely, broccoli and salads. We crave the things that we don't necessarily want to eat, like the ultra processed foods, the bagels, the biscuits, the cakes, because our body wants quick energy and it knows that. So you'll be craving those, which obviously adds on to weight gain. And another interesting thing about estrogen that not many people realize is that it actually helps to regulate our appetite. A lot of people or clients say to me, I'm just hungry, constantly hungry
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Even when I've eaten, I'm still hungry. So, when estrogen declines, it can have an effect on our appetite. It can stimulate our appetite because it doesn't have that balancing effect there anymore. So, you've got all these things going on, and then you're feeling constantly hungry and you want to be eating. Thyroid health, another is a thyroid is a gland that sits at the base of the neck, and this is really, it's like the engine of the body. And what can happen, and when women go through menopause, the cases of hypothyroidism, which is where it's not producing enough of the hormones that we need to kind of drive our metabolism, increase quite considerably. And the tricky thing there is that thyroid hypothyroidism has very similar symptoms to menopausal symptoms:
Ah.
fatigue, weight gain, headaches, all of those things. So what I say to people is, if you think it can actually be hereditary, genetic thyroid issues, just you can very easily have a blood test done that will show your thyroid hormone levels, just to kind of check that. So as you can see, there's many different factors that come into play, and then you've got like the aging process going on, and we maybe aren't as active as we used to be.
Mm. Yes.
I think in general we tend to sit more, don't we? And as we
Yes.
age, we're not as active. We may be feeling terrible with all these menopausal symptoms. We don't feel like going out. We don't feel like going to the gym. So it's a multitude of different things really that build up that can cause weight gain. So if you're eating correctly, then it isn't just that. You really have to look at all the different pieces there to get the picture.
I'm just pausing 1 second because of the background noise, but oh my goodness, I'm feeling like snowed under with all of this. And I don't know, listeners, if you feel this way as well, but wow. I feel like it's like a 1-2 punch over and over again. We're being knocked down again and again and again. However, I knew some of that, but I didn't know all of it. So that was really helpful, and I'm sure it will be to others listening to kind of hear all the different pieces. Because I mean, I've talked about stress many times on this podcast before, and cortisol, but now realizing that that all plays into this all at the same time, and thyroid, and with estrogen, I feel like that's where the mystery often is, because it's like we don't talk about the sex hormones as much. I don't know why, it's just hormones, but I feel like we don't talk about them as much. I don't know if you find that to be true as well.
No, it's true, we don't. But I think we tend to, we talk about puberty, don't we? Kind of adolescence, puberty. We in general, most people understand kind of what is going on there. We talk about pregnancy, which is another big hormonal event in a woman's life. But then when it comes to menopause, it's just kind of this silence, and nobody talks about it. But yeah, in general, I think estrogen, progesterone, testosterone aren't spoken about as much as stress hormones and insulin and
Yes.
the other hormones. Yeah, no, it's true.
Isn't that interesting? Okay, well, we're going to change that. Now we are understanding it better. Um, so, if anyone else is feeling like I am, I'm sort of feeling like, wow, how do I get out of that? And so, tell us, are there things we can do that maybe don't feel so overwhelming because you rightly said that if we're tired and we're irritable and we're not sleeping well and all of these things, then it's hard to take on massive change. We don't even want to. And I have to just pause and say, when you said that we might actually have more of an appetite, I just thought, well, throw in the towel then. That just seems unfair. But what can we do to either prevent some of this weight gain or just limit it or just feel better even during these periods?
Yeah, that's the good thing, Cheryl, is that there is a lot that you can do. And knowledge is power, isn't it? I know we don't like, it's like you were saying earlier, you don't really want to face this, but of course it doesn't happen to everybody. And what can happen is that you just, when I was saying you go from a pear to an apple, that you have like more of a shift in your body shape, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you will weigh more. It's just that you maybe feel, because you feel your pants are tighter, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you've actually put weight on. But what can you do? Like there's many things that you can do, and I think the first thing you have to do is just take a deep breath and think, okay, I can manage this, and don't go off and do some like radical, starvation diet. That's the worst thing you can do. When we age as women, we have to take a little bit extra care of ourselves. I always say you've got the 80-20%. So if you do 80% of everything right in lifestyle, what you eat, everything, you've kind of got that 20% to indulge and do what you want, because we all want to enjoy life, don't we? It shouldn't be
Yes.
restricting. But when you come into menopause, you really need to take that to kind of 90-10. But it's about eating nourishing foods. You have to get into your mindset that I'm going to choose to nourish my body with nourishing, delicious foods. And the foods that don't nourish my body, I choose not to eat. Rather than thinking, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, don't have that mentality, because there's so much delicious food that is really nourishing and good for you. But when we look at weight management, we also have to look at like portion. How much are you actually eating? Because of the metabolic effects of the decline in estrogen, really be mindful when you eat of how much is actually on my plate. A really good tip, this might sound very basic, but it's worked, and it's worked for many of my clients, is to use smaller plates.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Because it's kind of, you still feel, your plate's a bit smaller, but it's full of food. And it's like, oh, look at that. There's lots of food there. Dinner plates over the years, I actually looked into this, have just expanded. I've actually got a set of plates from my grandmother, and the dinner plate now is the same size as the side plate that we use now. I mean, they've increased considerably the size of our portions. So portion control, and not, you don't want to starve yourself. That is the worst thing you can do. If you're eating in balance, and that means protein, fats, healthy fats, and carbohydrates, preferably from vegetables, at every meal, your body, you'll be eating in balance. Protein is a key thing for weight management and for women's health in general, because if we eat enough protein, it's very satiating. It helps with that hunger. Protein, if you eat meat, things like chicken, fish, meat, etc. If you don't eat meat, nuts and seeds, soya products, tempeh, tofu, all of those things, really important. Roughly around a palm size of protein with every meal. Crucial for weight management. And then you want to be making sure you're getting all the nutrients that your body needs to nourish your body. So protein, carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates is, everyone has a view on carbohydrates, don't they, at the moment? And my view as a professional is that, it's the sort of carbohydrates. I don't believe
Yes.
in going completely carbohydrate free, because we need carbohydrates. But if you predominantly get your carbohydrates from vegetables, that is a really good balanced way. Now we're talking about weight management. Uh, you don't think about, okay, do I really need to have this big portion of rice on my plate? Do I really need to have potatoes here? No, there's nothing wrong with potatoes, nothing wrong with rice. But when you're looking at weight management, you don't necessarily need those carbohydrates. So if you for example take a meal that you would have a chicken breast, nicely cooked, and then you could have like a lovely big salad with it, or some broccoli and some carrots. Fill up on vegetables, and really having that style of eating can be very beneficial for weight management. It goes down the Mediterranean style diet, which always in all research comes up top, is a very sustainable, healthy way to eat and very good for weight management. And that basically is eating whole food, so nothing that comes out of a package, that's got 50 different ingredients on it. Meat, fish, seafood, vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, legumes, all your wonderful healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, and whole grains as well. That style of eating is really beneficial for weight management because unfortunately there is no quick fix. If you go on a fad diet, then you probably will lose weight. But when you stop that and start eating normally again, you probably will put the weight on that you lost and even more. So it's a long term game, really, isn't it? Overall health and weight management, and it's what you do daily that adds up for your long term health. Having the daily habits, buying fresh products, and it doesn't again have to be complicated. But I think I appreciate it's not easy because the environment, the food environment that we live in society is quite toxic, really, isn't it? And there's sugar and there's processed foods, ultra processed foods everywhere you go, and
Yes,
it's difficult.
absolutely.
It's really difficult to resist. I mean, we're only human, aren't we? But
Yes.
having good, solid foods in your fridge and in your house is the best start, really, to weight management.
Yeah, there's so many things in there that you said that are really, really important. And one thing that really stuck out to me, and I agree, but I've never heard it said this way, is to get your carbohydrates from vegetables. I don't know why, but it just kind of shifted the way I even look at this because I know that vegetables are important and we should have tons of them. And in fact, I did a gut health episode many months ago, and she said, number one rule of gut health, eat a lot of vegetables. But I just never thought that our carbs could come from that. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I mean, and think of the array of, but I mean, you've got starchy vegetables as well, haven't you? Like sweet potatoes, turnips, all of those are kind of in the, and they have more starch, sugar, carbohydrates in than, your green vegetables like kale and cabbage and all of those. I mean, the array of vegetables that you can eat, it's never ending and they're
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah. Amazing. I don't know why I never thought about it that way.
I think people always think of carbs, don't they? They think of bread, they think of pasta, they think of rice, which of course are carbohydrates, but we want carbohydrates, lots of fiber in. We don't want, if you're eating fiber rich foods, it doesn't spike your blood sugar in the same way because it takes longer to digest. It takes longer for your body to digest these foods, so your blood sugar will be much, the curve will be much smoother
Mm,
than the
okay.
the up and down,
Okay.
rather than having a muffin and a cup of coffee for breakfast that shoots your blood sugar up, whereas if you
Mm,
had some spinach and some salmon or eggs, or that gives that lovely smooth because it's nourishing and it's not full of sugar and additives.
great points. And when you said salmon and eggs, there's the protein, right? So I always thought about protein being important because maybe then it helps to build muscle, and so that's like the fitness side where we're trying to somehow keep active and stay in shape. But good point, you're saying it also helps us to feel more full, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It really, because if you think of protein, if you think of chicken or tofu, if you eat that, you can't actually eat lots of protein, can you? You know, if you eat a whole chicken breast, you're normally quite like satisfied. Whereas you could eat like a packet of chips or potatoes or whatever. That protein is very filling and very satiating, so it will curb your appetite. One thing as well that I see in a lot of clients, I know there's a lot of people talking about it, is intermittent fasting. You know,
Right.
the and looking at research on it, we still need more research on that. But I think one point that really is coming out that we can all take on board is that we don't need to be eating constantly. We don't need to be having like 4 snacks a day and 3 meals. It's actually been shown that we need to give our body a rest. We need to kind of give our digestive system a rest. So when it comes to weight management, if you can, really just think about your eating window. You know, if you have breakfast later and then finish your dinner by 6 or 7 o'clock, you've got quite a lot of hours between when you finish your dinner and when you eat breakfast again. And that is so healing and rejuvenating for the body. And also very good for weight management. And interestingly, in research that they've done on intermittent fasting, even when somebody doesn't change what they eat, so they're eating their normal diet, whatever that is, but they eat it in a smaller window and have more hours when they're not eating, was very beneficial for weight management.
Wow. That's very interesting. And I need to think on that for myself because I tend to eat a late dinner. And so I may need to make some adjustments there. And the body I think at night is going through some processing to kind of, for lack of a better term, clean itself or something like that, right? So we need to give
Yeah,
it time.
yeah, you do. And if you're eating later before you go to bed, quite your body will be digesting that food when you're in bed or when you're asleep. So it'll be doing all that. It won't be doing. It's like it does exactly as you say. It does it, but cleans. You know, it's like gives your body a clean and your digestive tract, and checks everything. Whereas if you're digesting food, it won't do that.
Right. Good point. I'm glad that came up because you're right. It's a big topic of conversation right now, intermittent fasting. So thank you for that. And I was just about to say something else that I forgot. Let me just see if I can remember what it was. Oh my goodness.
It's the menopausal brain fog. I have that
I
quite
know
often.
it's an example right here. Maybe I'll leave this part in so I'm demonstrating.
I have that complete. You just lose yourself in the middle of a sentence. It's honestly lack of estrogen to the brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any are there any foods that help with this estrogen problem, or is this just something we kind of need to adjust to? Is there anything we can do about that?
There's no food that will replace estrogen. That isn't possible. There's things. There's a nutrient called a phytoestrogen. Now, a phytoestrogen is a plant estrogen, basically, and it has a similar chemical structure to estrogen, but it isn't estrogen. So you can't take that and hope it's going to replace
Right.
your estrogen. However, it's shown that it can. It's in, for example, a great source of phytoestrogens is flax seeds.
Okay.
Flax are certainly the friend of a menopausal woman. A tablespoon a day is really good for you, but try to have them crushed rather than just take them whole because they just go straight through your system.
Mm,
But when it comes to food, you want to be, all the we've been talking about insulin and cortisol. You, you want what you should be aiming for is to manage these hormones that keeps everything in balance. But that's really what we're aiming at. If you want to replace your estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, then you need to take hormone replacement therapy. That
Right.
is that. But and you know, it's getting all the pieces together, isn't it? And we all, once we've got the knowledge, we can decide for ourselves what we want to do. You know, you've got the nutrition, hormone replacement therapy, maybe if that's something that you want to do, and then the lifestyle and mindset.
Right.
It's kind of getting everything in place. But there is no nutrient that can replace
Right.
estrogen.
Well, flaxseed, that's a good
Unfortunately,
tip.
yeah, flaxseed and soya products are very rich in phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens are very beneficial for women's health in general.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. And that's a whole nother topic, the hormone replacement. So we're not going to go down that path today because it's too much. But maybe we need to have that at another time. And, you know, I have watched my mom go through a chronic illness later in life that has been very debilitating. And it made me realize the other thing I need to focus on is staying active. And you mentioned this earlier, and trying to keep my fitness level up, because I do see that as we get older, as we kind of lose that, it's harder to get it back. So that goes along with what you're saying, you know, moving our bodies and then also eating in a way that's helpful and healthful. So maybe every little bit counts. Can we think about it that way?
Yeah, it's about your daily habits, and we need to move. There's it's not, for me, exercise is non-negotiable. You need to do some sort of movement, and it doesn't have to be, oh, I need to go to the gym for X amount of hours daily. Just go out of your door and go for a walk. If you're somebody that isn't used to moving, or maybe is really struggling with that, just do it twice a week to start with. 10 minutes. Walk to the end of the road and back. It's building on the habits. You know, once you've been doing that, you'll think, I actually feel better. This was great. And you'll do it 3 times a week. But any sort of movement is so crucial for weight management, for our overall health, and also for, you know, we need to keep our muscles.
Yes.
Another, actually, that we haven't spoke about is that as we age as women, we lose muscle mass, and muscles crave a lot of energy. So if you haven't got as much muscle mass, that can be a factor in weight management as well. If you're more muscular, you know, you will naturally burn more energy just because you've got more muscles. So lifting things, you know, you can do that at home. I have actually by my kettle, you know, I'm British, so I drink a lot of tea. I've got dumbbells by my kettle, and every time the kettle's boiling, I just lift them. Couple of minutes, and I probably drink quite a few cups a day. Really simple. It's just finding those hacks that you can fit into your life that work for you. But yes, movement is really important.
Yes. Well, this has been so helpful to me personally, which means I know it's going to be helpful to other people. I think maybe if you're listening, save this, go back, listen again, pick out the pieces that maybe you want to improve on or you want to do a little differently. There's so much good advice that you've given us, Allison. Thank you for that. Now, let me just pause and say, how can people find you or get in touch with you? Because I know you do help women with this all around the world. So tell us that.
Yeah, thank you. The best way to get in touch with me is via my website, and that is www.alisonblad, and that's BLADH.com. And on my website, I'm on virtually all social media channels under Alison Blard. But on there, you've got my resources page where you can download lots of free ebooks with eating styles, meal plans for all different menopausal conditions. So please feel free if any of your listeners want to go and do that. And you can also subscribe to my Midlife Health Bites, which I send out every week. Just small little tips that can keep you healthy and happy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And we're already connected on social media, but I am going to subscribe because that sounds amazing. Okay. Well, I could talk about this all day, but I'm going to ask you my last question because at some point we do have to wrap up the episode. So, My last question is the one that I ask everyone because we are creating a Spotify and Amazon Music playlist because I just think music is so powerful. And if we're thinking about stress and sleeplessness and all of that, maybe this helps. What is your favorite song that has good memories attached to it or feels nostalgic?
Yeah, I thought this is a great question because there's quite a few, but okay, I'm only allowed to pick one. It would be Sister Sledge, Lost in Music.
Oh, Sister Sledge, good memories.
They're wonderful, aren't
Wonderful.
they? This brings, yeah.
Go ahead.
I love dancing. I think that has so many nostalgia when when I was younger, dancing and being with friends, and I really love that song.
I I love Sister Sledge, and I can't remember that particular song, but I'm going to go find it right now. And so I will add that to the playlist. And you know what? Dancing, what a good way to stay active, right? Put on some fun music and dance around like an idiot in your living room, and nobody can see, and it's all good.
It's brilliant. Loud music in the kitchen, dancing around. It makes you happy, gets all your happy hormones going, and you burn calories, and it's good for weight management. So yeah.
Wow, triple whammy there. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Allison. This has been really informative and interesting, and I know it's going to be helpful. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.